Didn't see you there, everyone. Welcome to the Nightcap at the Milwaukee Film Festival. Welcome to Day 7 of the 2021 Milwaukee Film Festival, presented by Associated Bank. I'm Aster Gilbert, the genre-queer programmer at Milwaukee Film. And this is the Nightcap, presented by the Yabuki Family Foundation. Now, before we bring our special guests on, I have a couple announcements for you. And if you've been following the film festival for 7 days, you're probably used to some of this stuff. Don't forget, really important, to cast your vote for the Alan H. Budd and Suzanne L. Selig Audience Award. Now, to do that, you visit the film or the shorts program page at watch.mkefilm.org. It's right down here. You can log in with your pass or your ticket code and click the button that says Vote Now. And you'll be connected to the form that serves as your ballot. Please don't tear your computer screen. It's the joke we say every year. This year, voting closes at 11:59 p.m. on May 19th, and our awards will be announced at a live virtual ceremony on closing night of the festival, 7 p.m. So tune in to see if your favorites win. Now, as you've seen, we also have a double up challenge happening. And this is thanks to the generosity of Susan and Bob Michelet. If we raise $50,000 during the course of the festival, they will double it. And that is $100,000. So in order to contribute, you can text double up, that's all caps, double up, to 44321. Or you can go to mkefilm.org/donate to donate. It's also down there on the screen there. Or you can go to our mkefilm.org/members, membership, to become a member. So if you become a member during the course of the film festival, that money also goes towards the double up. So do that. Help us double up. Now, lastly, Milwaukee Film could not do what we do during the festival as well as throughout the entire year without the support of our members. Now, members get special access to free films throughout the year, discounts on tickets, passes, and a whole lot more. Plus, our members keep the nonprofit Milwaukee Film going. So if you think that sounds appealing and super cool, which it is super cool, join us. If you're already a member, thank you so much and help us spread the word. All right. Now, tonight's Nightcap, we have special guests, cast and crew from 2 films, Workhorse Queen and Best Summer Ever. Now, while we're talking to them, if you're watching us live, you can drop your questions and comments into the chat section on either Facebook or YouTube, and we'll ask those questions to the special guests. So do it, participate, be a part of this live experience. I can feel you through the computer screen. I see you watching. All right. Now, please join me in welcoming 2 special guests from the film Workhorse Queen, director and cinematographer Angela Washko, and Mrs. Kasha Davis.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
Hello, we have Miss Kasha Davis on the phone, an old rotary phone, yes?
Oh, yes. And, Mr. Davis updated with the most modern technology. All I have to do is push a button and it can go on speaker. Watch, ready? And I'm on speaker. How about that?
Oh my gosh, we are living in the future.
Ah.
How are you both doing?
It's great. Still in this rectangle, but otherwise vaccinated and ready to travel.
There you go. That's perfectly said. And it's great because, I just have a little bit of a glitter curtain and I'm down here in the basement with my best friends, the sump pump and the water heater. And we've gotten really close. So it's great. And they don't mind my, untucked hairy legs and all that stuff. So, woo.
Quarantine really was the friendships we made along the way.
There you go.
Great. So thank you both for joining us this evening. I'm a huge fan of the film Workhorse Queen. Really excited to dive into it. To get started, I'd love to hear, how did the 2 of you meet and how did this film project come into existence?
Yeah, I can start on that one. So I sent an email is the short answer. But, I had been, as a member of performance communities and a media and performance artist myself, I've been following RuPaul's Drag Race since it started. watched all the seasons, and out of all of the people who've been on the show, I was always really drawn to Mrs. Kasha Davis. I had this idea of her as this sort of taking on this 60s housewife persona, this married Mrs. Figure as a kind of feminist homage to women's underappreciated domestic labor. So I started looking more and more into the persona, and then started realizing that there was so much more to Ed's story that never got aired in the 5 episodes that Mrs. Kasha Davis was on RuPaul's Drag Race. And I really wanted to explore how the show transformed Ed's life and Mrs. Kasha Davis's career, and take a deeper look at the kind of community surrounding Mrs. Kasha Davis. So I sent an email, and then I came out to Rochester and saw a show, and then we had breakfast the next morning, and the rest is, well, the film.
And how was that for you, Mrs. Kasha Davis? What did you think when you received this email? Were you hesitant to have a film about your life?
Honestly, I'm so flattered, and I am so humbled, and I am so grateful. Angela reached out, and I believe, as fast as I could, I said yes, because I believe that you need to say yes. You need to get involved. You need to do things, and you never know what the payoff might be. And I'm sure, if you watch the film, you see what Mr. Davis and I have been doing for years on YouTube, and to stream it all together in a way that we would never have dreamt possible. Now, the other thing that she fails to mention is that she brought cupcakes to that next day, the day we met. And I mean, it was my birthday, and it was a whole box of Melissa's cupcakes from New York City. And of course, that sealed the deal.
There you have it. The rest is cinema history. We have a comment from Kara that really speaks to this. The lesson here is to just send an email. So, hey, kids out there and aspiring filmmakers, send that email.
Yeah, and I'm going to just add on to that. Send the email, communicate with people, and why not send the email and ask if you want to do something? And why not say yes?
If you happen to be a professor of electronic time-based art at Carnegie Mellon University, you probably want to mention that too, and a link to your Wikipedia page.
That helps. Yeah, that always helps.
Great. This is turning into a lovely advice hour. I really love it. So, Ms. Davis, so you're a performer, a wonderful performer. You've been on television, you do stage shows, the film shows, the YouTube series, all of these different things that you've done. Was it different to have someone follow you around with the camera and film your life? Because the film is much more intimate than we might see on like reality television or a stage performance. And I'm curious to know what that experience was like for you.
It was very educational. I'll say first and foremost, my initial reaction when somebody puts a camera on me or says you're on stage, I'm on, and Mrs. Kasha Davis is sometimes a little bit, over the top and woo. And so Angela began to say, that's great. And we have a lot of that, but let's bring it down to the truth. And she kept encouraging me to be as genuine in the moment and to tell the truth. And frankly, I didn't expect her to follow me around for 3 years. I mean, she didn't literally follow us around for 3 years, but there were a lot of times that there was a camera in my face or in our community and whatever we were doing. And so that began, that is something different, because I have an idea, this is going to happen this way. That's not my project. This is Angela's take on and her eyes seeing me, my life, and my community. And so that was a learning experience too.
And Angela, what was that experience like for you? I mean, this is, you're a multimedia artist, you're a scholar, an academic, and this is your first feature, and you're following around drag royalty. When I told all of my queer friends that I get to interview, Mrs. Kasha Davis, they're losing their stuff. So yeah, I'm the lucky one. So Angela, what was that daunting to, I mean, obviously you have the courage to just shoot an email out there and get some cupcakes, but what was that experience like, filming drag royalty?
I think there are a couple, I'm like, there are a couple of different ways I want to go with this response. One is that it was really important to me that, all of the crew working in the film, every camera person that I brought along with me, every person holding, a shotgun microphone, every person who edited the film, is identifies in the LGBTQIA plus spectrum. And so it was really important that, and also the other people who are shooting have experience, are either queens themselves or have experience working in a drag context. So I think that the world sort of surrounding both the making and the people who are represented in the film, I thought it was really important that everybody felt comfortable with each other. Darian Lake may have said some very inappropriate things to some of the people holding the camera at times, and that's part of they're comfortable with it and it's part of the work. But I think in terms of my artistic approach, it's often involved sort of situating myself as a participant and spending a lot of time and investing in the context that I'm working in. So I think it was really important to spend a long time kind of having Mrs. Kasha Davis do her thing and present herself how she wanted to be presented. And then once there's enough comfort and trust, have an honest conversation in a hotel room in Australia and say, I think we do have an incredible amount of you presenting your best, most amazing face to the world. And I think one thing that maybe we haven't seen yet from media that addresses the phenomenon of Drag Race is how difficult it is to pursue the sort of fame that the show offers, especially if you don't develop the visibility that maybe some of the people who've won have, and how much labor is going on behind the scenes, and how hard it is to kind of go on this up and down journey, and also just how physically taxing a lot of it can be. So I thought that if Ed was up for it, that this was something, it could be a unique contribution to the conversation around Drag Race and how it relates to mainstream media and the representation of drag on mainstream media. So I'm very thankful and humbled that, I feel like, Mrs. Kasha Davis took some time and sat with it. And then the next day was like, I'm ready to spill it all. So, I really appreciate, how willing you were to make yourself vulnerable.
Well, yes, thank you. And we began to build such a relationship where I felt I started to begin to call Angela an angel because she was so just encouraging, and I was able to put guards down that I honestly believe this experience has helped me in my performance in general as Mrs. Kasha Davis, and continuing to strip away a certain layer that I felt I needed to put on stage and be more and more my most genuine self. So there were times where I thought, oh my gosh, did I just share that? And I'm proud that I did, and that was because of the relationship that we built, and it took some time.
Yeah, I think that the trust in that relationship really shows through in the film, and really an incredible documentary, and what you share and what you express, both in terms of Angela, your filmmaking, and Miss Kasha Davis, your story, is really moving and intimate and powerful. I cried at parts of it. I've been telling everyone to see this film for that very reason. And so that's all. I'm rambling. I'm getting to a question here. You kind of touched on this topic of the labor, Angela, and the work behind it. The title signals this, right? Workhorse Queen. Were you at all ever worried? And this is either, Angela, and I definitely want to hear from Ms. Kasha Davis. Were you worried that this might spoil the magic a little bit, showing how the sausage is made, kind of looking at it's pretty intense, grueling labor sometimes behind the glam of this like beautiful, extravagant, fabulous performance? I'd love to hear both of your thoughts on that and your relationship to that.
Yeah, I think, seeing Mrs. Kasha Davis, for example, I wanted to follow Mrs. Kasha Davis on tour, on, the most, going from Australia and New York and LA and, sort of glamorous moments for Mrs. Kasha Davis, at least maybe on paper, and also to spend time with Ed at home when maybe when there weren't a lot of bookings, or when the calendar was a little less full, to really feel the range of experience that comes with that. And I think I hope that moments like getting to see Mrs. Kasha Davis really in her element, working with kids in Rochester on a project that's totally Mrs. Kasha Davis and her community figuring out something from the ground up, produced by Mrs. Kasha Davis and her community, seeing that in contrast with going to Australia and like feeling like that's going to be the thing, right? Like that's going to be that epic tour with the, 4 queens of the Stone Age, and from RuPaul's Drag Race, and a booking agent threatening to not pay or suggesting that he doesn't want to pay. Like, I feel like that contrast is really important in understanding just how special what Mrs. Kasha Davis that she can do when empowered to do something that's truly her vision, that is Mrs. Kasha Davis getting to be the queer role model that Ed desperately wanted growing up, and being able to communicate to parents and to kids, and create the sort of healing that it took so long for Ed to have with his father. I think for me, it would be hard to get there if we didn't see, some of the maybe less fulfilling opportunities that on paper seem like they're, the things that we're supposed to aspire to. And I think that's relatable across disciplines. It's not necessarily specific to performance and television, but, what the contrast is between getting to do the thing that is, truly yours and your vision, in contrast with doing the thing that's, the thing that you're supposed to do because, it's on paper the right thing.
Well, I would say for me, I loved watching a documentary about Joan Rivers when she looked at her calendar and it was blank, and she's Joan Rivers. And she's like, what am I going to do? And then so she goes to the Laurie Beachman Theater in New York City, and she has to go through the back parking lot. And I was fascinated by that. And I actually got to change in the same tiny little bathroom that she did, except that she got flowers. I didn't. I just got a tablecloth. And then and the first time I went to LA and they were setting up for the Oscars, I was fascinated by the fact that the back of the Oscar had duct tape because it was cracked. And they bring it out every year. And so there was that illusion that I had, and it was beautiful in a way to see that it's real. And filming for RuPaul's Drag Race, the fact when we got there, you had to use the restroom, you had to go across the street, and you see the Hollywood sign, and everybody's outside taking a break, and then you go back in, and it's Magic Land, And so I find all of that fascinating, and I think it's a wonderful thing that about where we are at in the world with documentaries and with social media, and you can continue to see the honest truth. I was speaking with a producer of RuPaul's Drag Race in the UK the last time we were there for DragCon, and he said, "Do you see the way Ru sort of walks across the room with an air of mystery and doesn't say hello to anyone or recognize people? That's a star." And I said, "Well, if that's a star, I don't want to be one, because to me, I want to make that connection with people and say hello." And have that. So, it's two different types of personas, but I like to be an example where people can see themselves and potentially achieve that in their lives.
That's really beautifully said. So, Mrs. Davis, do you see that kind of celebrity or star power is maybe, I don't want to say incompatible with community or queer community, but it seems like you are approaching this from a more community-oriented, like empowering approach?
Well,
maybe.
I think when I first started in drag, my role models and the people I would aspire to were Coco, Miss Richfield, Coco Peru, Lady Bunny, Barla Jean Merman. And when I would see them, they had a message in their cabaret show, and they were out on the streets, and they filled and then Drag Race came along, and it's a supermodel of the world, and that's a different persona. And so, but it was a path for me to follow. Since my sister Pandora Box got on, we thought if she can get on, we can get on. Where's my fan? But honestly, it became, with somebody we knew. So the fact that somebody we knew. So, and then it was sort of like, I believe every time I would audition, I realized I was trying to give them what they wanted. And then at some point it was sort of like, is this, square peg, round hole? And even so much as if you look on season 7, I'm the skinniest I've been in years. And so I thought, well, that's what they want, skinny drag queen, And those are life lessons that I think just happen as I've gotten older too. And I don't believe that somebody who's young could not realize this, but for me, it took me time and life to experience that I don't need to tick those boxes for people. I can truly be myself. And as Angela mentioned earlier, find a reward right here where my feet are, and not necessarily chase things. Because when I find that reward where my feet are, the things that I wouldn't even expect start to come my way, like an email from a professor at Carnegie Mellon asking to do. Well, I'm being serious. You just don't know, right? So that's my general statement on that, I think.
Beautifully said. Thank you for these responses. Really. Shifting gears a little bit, I would love to ask what is the reception of the film been? Has it been reaching the audiences that you want it to reach? I know this is kind of a weird time to release a movie during a pandemic, so kind of the same question for all pandemic filmmakers. But how have people been responding to this film?
Yeah, I mean, both of us are getting an incredible outpouring of really heartfelt personal messages from, so many different perspectives and experiences. We've managed to make a really, the film reached Simone Ioffi's family, who's featured in the film, someone that we interviewed who... I don't want to ruin the film for anybody, but who gives I would say, very moving interview about how important drag is to her as she's going through her struggle with cancer as a young mother. We connected with her family. It's been the film has gone to a lot of different even just film festival contexts in terms of queer festivals and genre festivals. And it's, virtual. I really wish, as someone who's kind of moving into the film industry as an artist who, has not participated in it before. I do feel like I really deeply want to see Mrs. Kasha Davis on a red carpet and getting to be on a stage, receiving the that sort of validation, especially after the panel scene from the Hurricane Bianca movie premiere. I would like to reverse that experience for Mrs. Kasha Davis. But I think we've done a bunch of film festivals nationally and internationally, and are excited to continue to expand the reach.
And it seems to continue to build nicely, and we get to have these experiences where we get to speak with you, and each of these, we'll continue to get messages, and so much so that tonight, so yes, I've received messages on Faceplace and InstaSnatch and Twitter, and just this evening, I was walking with Mr. Davis in our neighborhood with Max, and a neighbor that we see who's quite shy said he was nervous. He had his dogs, and he said he and his wife watched the film, and they cried, and they laughed, and they loved it, and they thanked us. And so this is somebody just in our neighborhood walking around. So because it's currently also streaming here in Rochester. So what a wonderful thing in this suburban neighborhood. This, identifying as straight man who's probably nervous every time he sees us, opened his heart and told us that. And I said, that's beautiful.
Also, Miss Richfield, 1981, who's mentioned in the film as, one of the primary inspirations for Mrs. Kasha Davis, went and saw it when it showed at Image Out Rochester just this weekend.
Yes, and then at her show in the evening, she went on and on about it, and then texted me and just thanked me for and Angela, of course, for being a part of it, and then said, "Let me know more so I can tell more people about it." So that was wonderful to be in the same audience in the same row with her watching it for the first time on the big screen.
Yeah, the last thing I want to mention about this question is that, obviously a lot of performers are applying every single year to get onto RuPaul's Drag Race. Mrs. Kasha Davis did it for 7 years. Aggie Doon, who's also in the film, has 13 seasons of auditions. Every city has performers who are trying to get on the show, and also drag kings and gender nonconforming performers who are in the drag community. So it's been meaningful that so many performers have found that the film resonates with them, and their relationship to how RuPaul's Drag Race sort of exists in the media landscape.
Thank you for those responses. I'm really glad to hear that it's touching people and reaching people. Because when I saw it, I was like, this is amazing. So I'm glad that that's the larger experience of this film. Before we start to wrap up, so I could switch it over to my colleague, there is a couple of audience questions. Well, actually, there's one. Most of them are really fun statements, like Angela says fun with an exclamation point. And Peggy said she'd love to try on your dresses and wigs, Mrs. Kasha Davis. So we got some fans in the audience. But we do have a question. This is going back to Angela, when you were talking about kind of your feminist interest in the subject. And this question comes from my good friend, Dr. Catherine Jacquet, a badass women's history professor. Does Mrs. Kasha Davis identify as a feminist?
I do. Mrs. Kasha Davis does, and so does Ed. My mother, I was my biggest fan from a very young little boy, girl, gal, girl, boy, fella. And, she and her mother were very vocal about feminism, and were very much so fought the housewife role and would butt heads with their husbands. And I was right there next to them, And I believe that foundation was very helpful for myself and my brother and sisters in our upbringing. And yes, there was friction, but it was a matter of, there was always the vocalizing that equality.
Yeah, if I can just also add to that question, I do think I was sort of projecting my own feminist media artist lens onto, an idea that I had about Mrs. Kasha Davis from TV. But I think what I was picking up from TV and then sort of confirmed from the time that I spent with Mrs. Kasha Davis, and even, digging through all of the archival material that I dug through, was that Mrs. Kasha Davis's persona comes from, a deeply specific homage. And I think for me, it really departed from maybe a lot of the queens that we're seeing on television, who maybe approach maybe more of a caricature of women, or, maybe use terminology that isn't always the most flattering or comfortable for women, terms like fishy, that, may make some women uncomfortable. And, I think realizing how much Mrs. Kasha Davis' persona is related to women who have struggled for liberation, how much is based in, the real Ed's real mother, was I think important for me as I went forward in making the film, and looking at the relationship between drag queens and the women in their lives.
Taking a pause to switch. Okay. So lastly, and we'll wrap up this segment, is I'd love to ask, apart from, Workhorse Queen is obviously still making the rounds, building its audience, but what is next for both of you? Are there projects in the works you can talk about, or are you still very much in Workhorse Queen mode?
I'm somewhat in Workhorse Queen mode still. We have a bunch of festivals still coming up, and some opportunities for broadcast, which I can't get more specific about than that.
Of course.
But so yeah, there's still certainly some work to be done there. But yeah, I'm a recent recipient of the Creative Capital Award, so I'll be working on that project.
Congrats.
Thank you. A video game project, and also recently completed a project with Temple University's Tyler School of Art and students there, making a performance for a virtual environment about our shared experiences of digital culture during the pandemic, called Always On.
Fascinating. Always on Zoom. That's where we
exactly.
That's life. And Mrs. Kasha Davis, what about you?
Well, definitely in Workhorse Queen mode, and so grateful to be a part of that, of course. And I'll be coming to Milwaukee on June 25th and 6th for flip phone events. Myself and Darian Lake will be there for the Pride weekend for brunches. But the biggest project right now that just fills my heart with joy is mentioned at the end, multiple times, but at the end of the film, about Imagination Station. We are creating 4 pilot episodes to be presented to streaming platforms and networks, and it will be 100% Rochester artists and technicians, and I'm teaming up with Blackfriars Theater and Fishing Crown Creative, and we are doing some crowdfunding for that, and that is at blackfriars.org.
Awesome. I'm so excited that you're coming to Milwaukee, and congratulations, Angela, on that grant. That is amazing. With that, I think we have to wrap up here and switch over to the next set of guests, but I want to thank you both so much for taking the time to talk about the film, hang out with me so I can brag to my friends. And also just thank you for the really incredible film, Workhorse Queen. Folks in the audience, if you haven't seen it, you really should prioritize this incredible film. And I hope you're both blessed with an amazing distribution deal for this film, because it's instant queer canon masterpiece. So congratulations on the work.
Thank you so much. Wow. Whew.
Thank you. It's great.
I'm just fan.
Blush.
I love Angela Blush. That is the best.
Oh my God.
All right, my work is done here. Thank you both so much. And with that, I will now invite on my wonderful colleague, Kirsten.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kirsten Larson, and I'm the programming director at Milwaukee Film. And I'm so excited to be joined by the team for Best Summer Ever. So we have the director, Lauren Smitelli, and 2 cast members, Ricky Wilson Jr. and Emily Cranking. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, how's it going? It's so good to be here. It's an honor.
Thanks for having
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you with us too. So I'll start out with a pretty easy question for Lauren. I'd just love to hear how this whole project got started.
Yeah, so this whole project basically was started from an organization called Zeno Mountain Farm, and it is a camp up in Vermont that I've been a part of for a couple of years before we decided to make this feature. And it's just a place for people with and without disabilities to hang out and be friends and do fun stuff. So it's over time really magnetized a lot of creative weirdos, and that's kind of like what we're known for. And my co-director, Michael Parks Randa, was a part of the camp, and we had actually never crossed paths there because it is such a big community. But when we wanted to kind of step it up and make a feature, because they had made shorts for years and years. So when we decided to make the feature, they were like, you and Mike are the directors of our crew, so you guys should meet and figure this out. And then we got Emily and Ricky and introduced them to the Zeno crowd, and they were totally on board. So it was just kind of like this wonderful little alchemy of people that love to make stuff getting together to do something, to take on a little bit more than we could chew, which is an original like musical. Yeah.
Well, I think it's definitely very evident that everyone working on the project was very passionate about it and was having a great time. For Ricky and Emily, I'd love to hear how you were cast and sort of what the audition process was like. And we can start with Emily.
Yeah,
Okay. So I found an open call on Facebook. I was like, okay, who's Zeno? What do they mean by camp? Is there's a summer camp where you make a movie for your like grandmother, or is it a fancy movie term? And I looked up Zeno, and I'm like, yeah. They're both, and I found out, okay, they're actually going to see about this movie, and I was thinking about being a movie musical, but movies in general, because I've been an actress, but movie musicals, and I sent in my Adobe singing and my resume, and they wanted me to have a callback in New York, and later I got the part, so the whole process took me about a month.
And then what about you, Ricky?
Yeah, for me, it's crazy because like I guess I was just in LA sort of doing whatever, I was like pretending that I had like a career going or whatever. But my Madeline, or Mumu, so sorry. I'm such good friends with her. I keep calling her by her real name. The lady that was the sound that she scored the film. She contacted me one day, and we were just basically catching up, and she asked me if I was still acting, and I was just like, Madeline, you know that I'm still an actor. What's going on? And she sent me the Becoming Bulletproof. And I watched Becoming Bulletproof, and she told me about like Zeno Mountain Farm, and just told me like she basically let me know that this was like the project for me, pretty much. I pretty much met everyone like in Venice, and I got like attached to the project, and I was like pretty much I fell in love with everyone. And that's just pretty much how it happened. It's like hard to describe the process because it just happened so fast, really.
Yeah, definitely. So I love, obviously, that it is such a fun musical and has so much singing and dancing. Ricky and Emily, did you have any experience with singing and dancing before you went in?
Yeah.
And if not, how are you going to do all of that for a movie set?
Yeah, Ricky, want to go first?
Well, my experience with singing and dancing is like in college. I went to acting school, so still like sing and dance a little bit. But this movie was a really good opportunity for me to pretty much push the boundaries on my skill set in a way. And it was also great being a part of like a cast and a crew that was just so like unconditionally like loving and understanding, because this is my first musical. So I have experience singing a little bit. I have a little bit experience dancing, but it was a good challenge. It was like a really good challenge. Like as an actor, you're always like, I'll do whatever I need to do to like give a good performance. And then when you're actually given the opportunity to give that performance, you realize just how far you can push yourself. And I mean, this movie let me know just how far I was able to push myself, and it was just a really good opportunity to capitalize on everything that I learned. It was just a culmination of just like acting coaching, and just the love and support that I received on set was just invaluable, pretty much.
Ricky came up to me at one point, and he like early on, and he was like, I'm just to let you know, I'm not a dancer. I was like, yes, you are. You are our dancer. We are going to make this work. And then like by week 5, Ricky's pulling all these moves, and he's just like, yeah, got it.
I mean, dude, ready to ride. The horse scene is incredible. Like really, really.
Yeah, I'm happy that turned out well. Yeah, I gave him I'm so happy that like, shout out to the editors, you know what I'm saying? Like that was that went well.
You were excellent. You did great.
And for me, musicals have always been the love of my life. So I've done like musicals since 6th grade, and I'm very much still pursuing musicals. I'm doing lessons right now for singing. I've been here for a couple of years, so I just knew I had to do this. Alas, I was the very last person cast, and actually the last character wasn't in the movie. So like the only lead without is solo in the movie. So, but still, it was like, you know what? You can hear me sing. That's all what matters. I'm singing and dancing. I'm pouring my heart out. I'm all good. Like I'm just grateful to be in this, and please don't cast me in a Broadway musical, please.
You're pushing hard for a good lead role in a sequel.
Absolutely. So as I feel like we see it in the final scene of the movie where the camera sort of turns on the crew and everyone's dancing and having a great time. But we have a question from the audience saying that the film looks like it was so fun to make. What was each of y'all's favorite on-set moment, and did it make the final cut of the movie?
Yeah, I'll jump in first because it was the scene that you just spoke about. That was something that we didn't plan for. It was never in the script. It was something that formed in that moment because we looked at what we had as our grand finale, and because we were shooting overnights and it was Vermont and it was cold and we were not we didn't have access to a ton of background actors, it wasn't giving us the feeling that we wanted. So I really had to be like, the film can't end this way, we have to do better. And then I was just like, all right, let's figure out, we just break the fourth wall, show everybody, because it's been it is the coolest thing about our movie is how we made it, because it was such a wonderful experience. So that's my favorite scene. I think it's so fun when you get to do something that was completely unplanned, and especially something as like big a moment as that. Like, we changed the ending of our movie, so that's definitely for me. Also because we were only halfway done with shooting and things had gotten really tough, and so it was like getting to play the end of the movie before we actually finished shooting, I think was like a really big energy boost for all of us, which is what we needed. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, there was the day that we were filming my swan dive when I'm doing my main, I guess, musical number. There were so many different takes where I was like swan diving like forward and like a little backwards, and like the one take they used was like a really good take, but it was so funny because I realized in that moment that I'm like a little afraid of heights, kind of. Like, I'm like slightly afraid of heights. But when you're on a movie set and you have to like do a swan dive, it's not the time to be afraid. You just gotta go for it. So it's one of my most memorable moments because like I immediately had to get over a fear, like immediately. And it's just I'll never forget that.
I was thinking, every time I see you do the dive, I was like, oh my God, is he okay? Like, what is he doing? What is he doing on? Is he okay? Is he okay? So I'm like,
yeah, it turned out all right. It turned out all right.
And if you think like jumping on that spot, honey, have you gotten stiff running in California?
Oh yeah.
I thought I was gonna die that day, not even lying. But yeah, my favorite moment is actually the finale, because that was the very first thing we shot. It was the Tony dancing to the kick to the big finale, and it was my first day of it was my first day in the movie set, period. I was like, what is happening? What is going on? This is real life. And actually, as for the cut, I didn't have any real scene where I caught the plug. I didn't have that moment, but it was cut, which was disappointing. But I got the video on my phone. So I still have it on my cell phone. Very good.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
All that matters, exactly.
So while I know we can all tell that it was very fun to put together, and there are also some challenges behind the scenes to making the film. Were there any issues of accessibility that you had to navigate throughout the production?
It's funny. I think that the problems that we had nothing to do with the disability aspect. It was really just very typical indie film, no time, no money situations that we got ourselves in. And we're also a group of people that are pretty, gritty and down to do whatever we can to make things accessible. Like, so for instance, when we did, we were in locations that weren't accessible, but we would find a way to make them accessible. We would build our own ramps, or we would, just do whatever we could to make everything very even. But the problems we had were really all just production problems. It was just like such basic stuff, which is kind of cool, you know, to realize that accessibility was not an issue in our production.
Yeah, and actually for me, they rewrote one of my scenes. One scene where I broke my arm. Originally, it was supposed to be a ladder and I would fall off, and I did that scene in my car back, and I was like, I can't climb, and I will literally break my arm. So can we just rewrite this so I don't die, so I don't sue Sino
Yeah,
for
exactly.
my insurance? So they rewrote the door. They gave me a really good stunt, and it's all thanks to their great writing and direction by Lauren and Michael.
And it's much easier to rewrite a scene than it is to be on a football field and realize that the lights that you rented from New York are not working. You know?
I remember that, yeah.
Oh my God, I remember that. That's amazing.
Because there was a giant, like, wind coming. I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm so cold. What's going on?
Yeah,
it's one
exactly, yeah.
So another thing I would love to hear about is I thought it was really interesting in the script how there isn't really any explicit discussion of any of the disabilities that the characters have, and I was wondering if that was a intentional, specific decision that was made during the writing process.
Yeah, it was definitely intentional. It's just like the Xeno way of life. Like I have friends that I've known at Xeno for years, and I'm not totally clear on what their disability is. It's just another friend in the group, and I kind of feel like, you know, you obviously don't want to touch on erasure, but I don't think that our film does. I think that it's so clear that this is an environment that that people's disabilities are a part of their character. It's not their whole identity. And so I think that because specifically entertainment really focuses, if there's a disabled person in something, it usually really only like narrowly focuses on that. We just wanted to avoid that completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that really refreshing. So I appreciate it. And I think a lot of our viewers will too. Another thing I'm curious about is that with your executive producers, it is quite a star-studded list. And like you have Maggie Gyllenhaal and Peter Sarsgaard making a cameo in the film, and Jamie Lee Curtis is on board. So I was wondering just how you got connected with all of them.
I think that Xeno has acquired a lot of friends along the way. It's an organization that has, you know, existed since I think like 2008. So we tend to be a group that like gets attention when we go out, you know, like we're definitely a ragtag group of artists that'll just like pop up at a concert, and it's kind of like hard to ignore us. But I think that a lot of our EPs probably came on board through seeing the documentary Becoming Bulletproof, if they weren't already involved in Xeno in some way. And I know like Maggie and Peter, they're just Vermont locals, so they, you know, they just happened to be in town, and we were like, you know, can we grab you for this? So things like that. I think that the most beautiful thing about Xeno is that it is a community of people that just really like believe in the best in humanity. And I think when you throw that into the atmosphere, it comes back to you in a really special way. So I think that's kind of how we've gotten connected to all these wonderful EPs. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's great that you're able to get that support and visibility from big names in Hollywood, and I hope it is able to create more projects like this in the future. I think we'll have to wrap up soon, but my last question I have is for Emily. love to hear if you have any advice for aspiring actors with disabilities who might want to get involved with the project.
Please, 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 to God, to do it. Before person ever. I did not see any disabled actors at all to my senior year in college. So pretty much like gave up at that point because, hey, I don't see myself. And then when I was the person ever, like, this began to come out in the workload, and now here I am in a mainstream movie, and now I was invited to audition for conservatory in DC, and I was the first one that got in, which was my big shock. And today, Disney just announced for the new Peter Pan movie, One of the Lost Boys has Down syndrome, which is I freaked out about. So there's so happening. There are agencies that's going on. Please to God do it. The world is changing. If I can do it, so can you. I can't stress this enough.
Well, thank you so much for those words. We'll hope people hear them far and wide, and we absolutely hope that we can have all of you back at the Milwaukee Film Festival sometime in the future.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining us tonight, and have a great night. Bye.
Thank you
Thanks
so
so much
much.
for having us.
Nice.